Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at something pretty dramatic happening in Asia Pacific. It feels like the ground is shifting under the financial world there.
It really does. We're seeing that. Well, people are calling it an expat exodus.
Exactly. A huge movement of professionals, talent, leaving Hong Kong and seemingly heading straight for Singapore.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a bit of analysis looking into this. It's a real tale of two cities.
So our aim today is to unpack why this is happening. What are the real drivers?
And what does it mean? For businesses, sure, but also for the communities in both cities. And crucially, what does it mean if you're a professional needing, say, an extended stay, looking for a service department, or setting up a temporary office in either place?
Yeah, the implications are broad. We're looking at sources that really dig into the demographic changes, the economic shifts.
Yeah,
It seems like this is reshaping strategies in real time.
it is. And the analysis we've seen suggests this isn't just, a normal market fluctuation for Hong Kong.
No, it feels more fundamental. The sources point pretty clearly to policy decisions being a major factor, a real push.
It's quite striking how fast those policy choices seem to have translated into people, well, voting with their feet.
Okay, so let's start with Hong Kong then. Let's unpack this brain drain. What's forcing talent out?
Well, the sources are pretty consistent on this. It's not just expats, by the way. Locals are leaving too.
Right, that's an important point. It's broader than just the stereotypical expat community.
Exactly. And the two big drivers that keep coming up are, first, the really strict and long-lasting COVID-19 quarantine rules. For years, that just hammered connectivity, personal life, everything.
Made it incredibly difficult to operate as an international hub, I imagine.
Absolutely. And then perhaps with more lasting impact, there's the National Security Law, the NSL, that came in back in 2020.
Okay, and the combination of those two.
It created a serious chilling effect. You saw international professionals just finding it untenable.
I get the quarantine fatigue, that makes sense. But the NSL, can you elaborate a bit on why that specifically pushed finance and other professional sectors so hard? What was the core issue for, say, a compliance team or a fund manager?
Sure. I mean, fundamentally, it changed the legal ground rules. Finance, tech, international business, they all rely really heavily on predictability, legal certainty, transparency, especially around data.
And the NSL introduced uncertainty.
Exactly. A new level of ambiguity, concerns about regulatory interpretation, potential overreach, things that risk-averse international firms just, well, they couldn't easily factor in.
So it became a risk calculation.
Precisely, and the numbers seem to back this up. We saw official data showing a noticeable drop in the non-Chinese permanent resident population. That's a direct indicator.
And this obviously hit businesses that catered specifically to that group.
Oh, absolutely. Think about international schools, certain types of restaurants, bars, even high-end property rentals in some areas. They felt the pinch immediately.
So, okay, the stability, the ease of just doing business and living life became paramount. And people started looking elsewhere. Dubai maybe, but overwhelmingly Singapore.
Yes, Singapore really emerged as the main beneficiary.
Which leads to the next big question. Why Singapore? What's the big draw? Is it purely the stability, or is there more pulling people in? Is the money just better?
Well, the financial side is definitely a huge factor, but it's also tied up with policy again. Singapore just stayed relatively open, especially with travel, during the pandemic compared to Hong Kong's approach. That was a massive practical advantage.
A clear signal of openness.
Right. But then you look at the compensation, Singapore definitely gained an edge there.
We saw some interesting analysis on that from ECA International, didn't we? What did their study find?
Yeah, ECA International tracks expat cost of living and pay globally. Their study highlighted that expat packages in Singapore actually went up by about 4% in 2022.
4% is quite a jump. Was that just companies paying more for talent?
Partly, but the sources suggest a big chunk of that increase was actually driven by rising accommodation costs. Rents in Singapore went through the roof. So companies had to bump up the housing allowance, the cash component, just to cover that.
Interesting. So higher costs, but employers were stepping up to cover it. What about Hong Kong in that same period? Did packages rise there too?
No, that's the contrast. The ECA data showed expat packages in Hong Kong actually declined slightly over the same period.
Declined, even with Hong Kong also being notoriously expensive.
Exactly. And ironically, even with that decline, Hong Kong still ranked higher in overall costliness for an expat package. Why? because its own accommodation costs were also soaring.
Okay, let me get this straight. Rents are skyrocketing in both cities.
Pretty much, yeah. Different drivers maybe, but costs went up significantly in both places.
But in Singapore, employers were increasing the package to help cover it. Plus, you had the policy stability. In Hong Kong, the package might be shrinking, and you have the policy uncertainty from the NSL and the lingering COVID effects.
That sums it up nicely. So if you're a professional, maybe with a family, planning a multi-year assignment, or if you're a company deciding where to base a regional team.
Calculation starts to look pretty clear. You need reliability, especially for longer stays.
Absolutely. And this is where things like service departments, flexible serviced offices, reliable long-term accommodation solutions become critical. Companies need to know they can place their people somewhere stable, where the rules aren't going to change overnight, and where the support infrastructure exists. Singapore offered that confidence.
That makes a lot of sense. Policy clarity and financial support feeding directly into demand for those extended stay services in Singapore.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's pivot back to Hong Kong then. We've established this outflow, particularly of Western or international expats.
Oh,
But the city isn't empty. Who is filling that talent gap? This seems like a crucial long-term shift.
it really is. And this is probably the most significant demographic change highlighted in the sources we looked at. The void is increasingly being filled by professionals arriving from mainland China.
So Hong Kong's own initiatives to attract talent are working, but drawing heavily from the mainland.
That appears to be the case. Various government talent schemes aimed at bringing in global professionals have seen, well, a very high percentage of successful applicants coming from the mainland.
Right. So the talent pool is being replenished, but the source has shifted. How's that changing the city's vibe, its identity, that cosmopolitan feel Hong Kong was famous for?
Well, it's definitely changing things. You see businesses fundamentally adapting their strategies. Take banking, for example.
Okay.
There's a noticeable pivot. More resources, more focus going towards wealth management, specifically for mainland Chinese clients. The services, the products are aligning with the preferences and needs of this rapidly growing, influential demographic.
And I guess that filters down into everything else, like everyday life stuff.
It has to. Marketing changes. Language requirements shift. Maybe less emphasis on English first. More need for Mandarin proficiency in client-facing roles. The types of shops, restaurants, services offered, they naturally start to cater more towards the dominant customer base.
So the very fabric of the city, the business ecosystem, is adapting.
It is. It potentially means less diversity in the types of services that traditionally catered to, say, a Western or international expat community, because that community is shrinking relative to the mainland influx.
That's a really important point for anyone considering a move. The infrastructure you might rely on, schools, specific shops, professional networks, might be changing its focus.
Exactly. It's adapting to a new reality.
So let's talk about the concrete impacts then. What does this mean for businesses right now on the ground in both cities?
Well, in Hong Kong, you hear anecdotal evidence and some data suggests that businesses that were heavily reliant on that traditional international expat crowd are struggling.
Like those restaurants and bars we mentioned.
Yes. Some have closed, others have had to significantly change their model or reduce operations. And the property market tells a story too. While overall rents might be high, there's been a noticeable drop in demand for the specific types of high-end apartments typically favored by Western expats in certain districts.
So a specific segment of the market is contracting, even if the overall market is being pushed by other factors.
Precisely. Meanwhile, in Singapore, it's the opposite story.
A boom.
Pretty much. The growing expat population drawn by the factors we discussed is fueling demand across the board. Service industries are thriving. Yes, there's intense competition for talent, definitely.
So companies have to fight harder to attract people.
They do, which is why those attractive compensation packages, the quality of life factors, the perceived stability, they become absolutely crucial differentiators. The whole ecosystem is expanding to meet this influx, more demand for restaurants, schools, entertainment, and yes, a huge demand for quality housing, including service departments and longer-term stay options.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. We've got these twin narratives. Hong Kong, facing an exodus driven largely by policy concerns, the NSL, the past COVID rules leading to a shift in the demographic makeup towards mainland professionals.
Right, and businesses there adapting to that new reality.
And then Singapore, actively attracting global talent through perceived stability, relative openness, and sweetened financial deals, leading to growth across its service sectors.
That captures the essence of it, I think. And looking forward, the sources suggest that while Hong Kong has weathered storms before, this particular wave feels different.
Raises questions about its long-term identity as that truly global cosmopolitan hub it once was.
Exactly. A lot hinges on future policy choices and whether international confidence in its legal and regulatory environment can be fully restored. Singapore, on the other hand, seems really well positioned to continue benefiting from this trend, at least for the medium term.
It's a fascinating and pretty fundamental realignment happening right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider, especially if you're an international professional thinking about Asia Pacific.
Okay.
When you're weighing up Hong Kong versus Singapore, or even other hubs, recognize the depth of this demographic and cultural shift we've discussed. It's not just about the job offer or the tax rate anymore.
Right. It's about the environment.
Precisely. In Hong Kong now, you need to understand that the city's ecosystem, from the focus of the financial services sector, right down to the language skills prioritized in service jobs, the types of international schools available, maybe even the restaurant scene, it's increasingly being shaped by and for the growing mainland professional population.
So you're not just picking a city on a map.
No. You're choosing which cultural and business infrastructure you want to be part of. One that's rapidly adapting to cater to mainland Chinese professionals, or one that's currently booming by attracting a more traditionally global mix, albeit with its own rising costs and pressures. That choice will likely have a profound impact on your entire experience finding the right accommodation, your social life, even maybe your kids' education. It's something to think very carefully about.